You're walking down a long hallway. There's one flickering torch on your right. As the hallway ends, it opens up into a dimly lit room. The air feels stagnant, damp, scent of mildew, and the hint of something else you can't quite pin down. The only light is the flickering torch that you passed. It's casting strange shadows that undulate and crawl across the ceilings and the walls. Small reflections glimmer white off the floor. As you step, you feel a crunching sound as your boot pulverizes the carcass of a small rodent. In your long shadow stretching to the far end of the room, you look down and see the whole floor is filled with bones. Some small, some bigger, some almost humanoid. You hear chittering. You look up. Your heart skips a beat. You see your eyes reflected back to you not once or twice, but 8 times. Roll for initiative. So, as DMs, we give out little snippets like this all the time to set the scene, start the combat. But what if, instead of just setting the scene or starting the combat, how much more interesting of a story could we tell if after those awesome words, roll for initiative, the fight was also fully descriptive? So on this episode of Dragons and Dice, I'm making a case for adding more theater of the mind to our D&D games. Let's check it out. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. So lately, I've been listening to a Daggerheart actual play. I'm listening to the Crit Rolls Age of Umber right now. And while I am a D&D junkie, I am really intrigued by the amazing storytelling capabilities of this new TTRPG system that Darrington Press has come out with. And I'm really excited about it. And it got me to thinking about the new 2024 D&D rules. And as I've said many times, I love the weapon masteries and the new movement and the versatility that combat has now. But one of the side effects of all of that is that it has made combat a lot more tactical, and there's a lot of moving parts. And with all those moving parts, it becomes really easy to lose the good descriptive flavor that combat can have if you're playing, say, Theater of the Mind, where you're not as concerned with placement and it's a lot more theatrical. If you're at your table and you've got your character sheet and you're looking at your maps on your VTTs and you're having to pay attention to where all the monsters are, and they're getting moved around each turn too, because now people have pushes and they can knock people over and they can pull people. And then when it gets to your turn, it's very easy to be like, I'll use my movement to go here. I'm going to hit this guy with my maul and try to topple him. That's a strength save. And then you pause for the DM to roll. Okay, he falls prone. Okay, so I'm going to take my second attack with advantage now, but I'm going to pull out my great club, and then I want to push him 10 feet. Does he fall off that cliff? DM measures. No, he's still 5 feet from the edge. Okay, I'll use the rest of my move to yada, yada, yada. Y'all know how turns go in D&D. And that's a good turn. That person used, 2 of their weapons, used their weapon mastery. They've moved people around. They've knocked people prone. But while that was a really good turn, it's kind of a boring turn. There's not really anything going on. You're just getting that, like, I move, I attack, I do these 3 things. And it's really easy, even as the DM, to do the same thing. When you get into combat and you have 6 or 7 PCs and they've got summons and they've got concentration spells up and you've got 8, 9, 10, 12, however many monsters fighting them, it's really easy to get caught up in the where every single thing is, what all monsters have, what all on them. It kind of grinds out and it kind of takes away the fun descriptive flourishes that, as DMs, it's one of the fun parts of D&D is you get to do all the describing and paint the picture for the people, and the players get to do the same thing when they make their attacks. But with the complexity of the new stat blocks and everything that's on your character sheets and the way everything is on VTTs now, it's really easy to get lost in the tactical part of combat as opposed to the good, like, descriptive storytelling that combat can be a big part of in your D&D story. Let's check out that exact same turn, just Theater of the Mind now. So, players, can I reach that burly one with the ponytail that's been insulting me? You hear that, the guy with the ponytail, he's like, your mom's so fat she wouldn't fit in my bag of holding. I pull off Meat Hammer off my back. No one talks about Dorothy Mantooth that way. It's time to tenderize some smart asses. I charge 18 to hit. DM says that hits. As a charge, I spin to get maximum momentum as I attack. I see that the ponytail guy's raised his shield, so I aim my attack at his knees. 18 damage. The DM rolls a save. With a sickening crunch, you feel this guy's knee crack with the force of your blow. He screams out in pain, ah! And he falls in a heap at your feet. Fear now in his eyes as his guard's down. Awesome. I drop Meat Hammer. Don't worry, baby, I'll be back for you as I pull Pulverizer off my back and I smash down on him with an overhanded two-handed swing with my great club. 22 to hit, 14 damage. All right, you smash right guy through this guy's chest, and you hear him gasping for air as you've dented his breastplate. I grab him up by his ponytail until he's kneeling, and then I kick him over toward the edge of the cliff. So, this is the same two attacks, and it's basically the exact same thing mechanically. He's giving you to hit, damage, all that, but now it's way cooler, and if it's all not gridded out, and you're playing Theater of the Mind as the DM, you now have the option that if this guy's pretty close to dead, to give this player a really awesome turn, because if you're playing VTT and measuring everything out, that guy's only, he's 15 foot from the edge. He's not going to fall off the 10-foot push, but Theater of the Mind gives you a lot more flexibility. So as a DM, you can be like, you pull this guy up. He would scream if his dented breastplate would allow enough air. He just rasped. All the bravado gone. The insults have died with his ability to breathe freely. You boot him in the chest. He flies back, rolling over. He tries to stand, and you see that the left knee you've caved in falls sideways, and like a puppet with a string cut, he starts to fall back, realizing 1 second too late how close he is to the cliff. And the last thing you see is his ponytail as he disappears off the cliff, and all you hear is his screams dying on the wind. So, if you're playing on a grid and playing on your VTT, you can still be like, he falls off, and he goes an extra 5 feet. But you're having to fudge, and if you pull out a tape measure and it doesn't work, and then you fudge it to try to make it cool, it kind of takes it away a little bit, because now instead of like that player doing the cool thing, they kind of know they shouldn't have, and you're giving it to them, as opposed to having a nice back and forth between you two and a very fluid happening of like, oh, that guy's only got 12 hit points left. Let's let him fall, because that makes this turn so much more thematic and enjoyable from both sides of the table, you as the DM and all the players, as opposed to, we measure, he shouldn't go that far, but there's a rock, or whatever excuse you make for the fudge. You don't have to do that with Theater of the Mind. My thoughts on this example is that both are mechanically correct, but the second is a way better back and forth between the PC and that monster who the DM's playing. And the thing about Theater of the Mind, it works so smoothly for you as the DM, as long as you have a good handle on like what the weapon masteries are and what weapons your players are using, or spell ability and effects, pushes and pulls that they have, and what the saves are going to be if they hit. It's kind of important if you're the DM to know those things, so that you can be like, oh, he's hitting me with a maul. I know he's hit. That's going to topple me. Go ahead and make your strength save. Don't wait for them to call it out. And then you can be like, oh, you cracked this guy's leg, he falls prone. It's really nice for your players and the fluidity of your game if you on the DM side are ready to go with all your saves and all the effects that those players are going to have on the monsters that you're attacking. It just makes the game fluid, and you as the DM, that's kind of like your responsibility to know all those things, so that if you're going to play this Theater of the Mind, that they can still use all the abilities that they have, because it doesn't really work if you're like, well, we're going to play Theater of the Mind, so you can't push or topple anybody, or you can't pull people now because it messes up the flow of things. That takes away from a lot of what the abilities that players have now are. So it's important to know your saves, make your saves as the turn's happening, and keep that back and forth flowing. Little DM sidebar here, something that'll help everyone that's running a game out. Keep a simple list of each player, their AC, their spell/ability save DCs that you'll have to beat, and what weapon masteries they have, and the corresponding saves to those weapons masteries also. That way, it's super handy. You know you just got hit by that fighter with a maul, and he's going to try to topple you with it. You know that it's a strength save. You already know what his spell save is for that. You just go ahead and roll it while the turn's happening, and it lets you be really quick with your saves and not have to be like, oh, was that a maul? That's a strength save, right? What's your DC? 15. Okay, let me roll. Okay, you know, the spell's broken when you do that if you are trying to like have a nice theatrical fight, whereas if you've already done it, it can just be like the theater of the mind was earlier and crack, that guy's knee goes down. Just something to put in your pocket as a DM, makes life a lot easier and makes you a lot more fluid with your combat descriptions. The other main thing that I think playing theater of the mind brings out is that when we play on a grid and we play on a VTT, we don't use as many descriptives during the combat and there's not as much back and forth. And you miss out on the amount of emotion you can pull out of your players, whether it be humor or anger. If you're just like Orc 7 swings their great axe, that doesn't instill fear or anger at that monster. It's just, a detail for that combat. But if, as DM, you add flavor into your monsters, especially sentient ones that can talk or have like the ability to display lots of emotion, you can just make combat into a social encounter too. And I'm not saying like do full NPC style personalities for each monster that can talk, because we all know Orc 7's about to die. He's not going to be getting a cameo in the next scene. He's about to be gone. So you don't want to waste a whole lot of time on that. But if you turn Orc 7 into Gornok the Obscene, and then the next Orc is Wark the Weak, and when the fight starts, as the DM, now you get to play Gornok in the way, and he taunts and chides the party and works a fearful orc, and he runs and screams and hides. This gives you a lot of flexibility in combat, because now you can like insult the party. It'll be even happier when they get to kill that guy because he's sat and taunted them the whole fight. And at the same time, you've made this guy out to be a like weakling scaredy cat, and he's going to be running and like hiding. And this gives you more dynamic feel to your combat. And when Wark the Weak sees Gornok the Obscene get killed, he can take off. And if you're playing on a VTT, it's kind of hard to transition into straight chase if you don't have maps prepared for chase scene at the end of a battle. But if you're playing Theater of the Mind, it just transitions instantly into you're now chasing this orc down through the forest until you catch him, and each person gets to take their turn in initiative, and the Theater of the Mind makes that all one fluid transition. Whereas the other way of playing, if you're gridding it out, you run out of paper real quick, or if you're playing on VTTs, you either got to pull up another map or something, because that guy's going to leave the battlefield. And then if you're wanting to keep it all gridded, you don't have that as easily available, as opposed to this guy darts behind the rock. Okay, I'm going to jump over that rock. Do I see him? And you're like, yes, he's 2 trees up to the left. And now it's just a nice back and forth as you play it out in your minds. And it lets the players be creative and descriptive and not worry so much with the minutia of exactly, well, I can move 30 feet. Well, I needed to get 35 to do this. As opposed to, I get to do this and it sounds cool, so we just do it, and it makes it fluid and more fun. And I think that's a real advantage of Theater of the Mind. Now it's time for a homebrewed item of the week. So there's always so much to do as a DM, and this week's homebrewed item is going to be more of just an archetype system that once you have made as a DM, you can just plug and play to any combat that you have. So what I like to do is make 3 to 5 just base archetypes, and then you can just drop those onto a monster. And so I'm going to give you 5 that I use, and maybe if you're a DM, can add them to your game. And so the first one is going to be the Boisterous, and this is going to be the cocky trash talker. Probably the first one that the players will kill. This one's fun for the DM, as you get to hurl insults and talk trash to your, PCs, and then totally fail to back it up as they kill it immediately afterwards. Or maybe you do, and it's even better, and then they get to make new characters. But all this personality needs is to be cocky, have a few good cut downs, or you can go the other way, and they're really terrible at trash talk, but it's just someone that's going to try to goad the party along. Number 2 is going to be the Scared, and this will be a monster that's going to be the one that hangs out the back, lets his buddy dies, he begs for quarter, he looks for ways out of the fight, and he's going to be the first one to run away. Make this character like a sniveling coward. It works really well if you have ranged monsters or casters, as they're like sneaking at the back already, and it's a good way to make chase scenes and have your party have someone that's like trying to get out of the fight. Number 3 is going to be the Zealot. And this one's going to be just the true believer in whatever their group is doing. If it's orcs and they're raiding, he's going to be the, best raider. This is the one that will sacrifice life and limb literally to achieve the goals of whatever they follow. Make this one fearless and reckless. as they believe in the ineffability of their beliefs. They die early in combat a lot. Number 4 is going to be the veteran. This is the one that will work most effectively and has life experience to fall back on. Not going to be super chatty. This is going to be the one that's making like good combat decisions, will negotiate if things look dire, and is probably a bit more honest than the others on this list. And then number 5 is the creepy. And this is a monster that has some sort of like scar, talks in a weird way, gives players the heebie-jeebies. It's like, ooh, I don't want that guy with the milky eye and the really bad breath being the one that comes up and bites me. You know, its purpose is to make the party feel a little bit uncomfortable. Avoid, initiating trauma responses. Don't go like full body horror and stuff like that with this. But it's to make combat a little more emotional and intense. Just don't take this one too far. Know your party. So these are just templates. You can add them to a group of baddies to make them feel a bit more like sentient beings than just cannon fodder for your PCs to flex on. And after you have them built, you can just give this personality to a group of kobolds, orcs, devils, whatever your party is going to be able to fight. You can just add a personality type or 3 into each of your encounters, and it makes those encounters seem like instead of just fighting like Orc 7, you're actually fighting people who are named and have lives and have personalities. And it's a good little add-on as a DM to have these in your pocket. I hope you enjoy. Okay, time for some closing remarks here. I want to say I love the new D&D mechanics, and I don't want this to come across like we should throw those out. I just wanted to point out that for smaller combats and for maybe some like loose combat encounters as DMs, we should be maybe using more theater of the mind, as it makes those little combat encounters more thematic and interesting. And then when we get to the big fight, and if you want to fight your BBEG with full VT, we're going to grid that out and we're going to make it a tactical slugfest. I think that's perfectly fine, as those big boss fights, you probably as a DM already have some built-in dialogue and role play. I mean, with those characters that are like, oh, they've hunted this person for the whole campaign. They're not just going to like, now we fight without ever saying anything. You're going to have more story to give and all that. So I feel like for the big fights, if you already have some like lore drop and that there's going to be social encounters in it, go ahead and play those out VTT. But if you're just doing little random encounters, do theater of the mind, let people be creative, expand out a repertoire of what their character can do more than just like, I move 5 blocks, I attack twice, I do these weapon masteries. It gets a little dry if you do that. So if you kind of spice this up, when you get to those big VTT battles, your players will still want to be like, I'm going to move here, I'm going to do this, but they'll still give you those good descriptive turns that they're doing, and you as the DM can do the same thing right back. And I think by practicing on the small fights, when you want to have a big tactical battle, it won't be so dry. And I think that using VTT is great for that type of things, and that using theater of the mind for the smaller stuff is a really good way to keep a table working on telling a story together and being descriptive. And I think that's one of the joys of D&D, and something as DMs and players we should be striving to do together. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. As always, thank you all so much for spending your time listening to me go on about Dungeons and Dragons. And I hope this helps you all have more descriptive combat and cool encounters and just a better storytelling in general as the D&D table, because that's what we all want. It's a fun game, and it's awesome to tell a story with your friends. And if you can, leave a like, a follow, and review, and even better, tell a friend about the show, as it helps with exposure. Word of mouth is the best way to go. Until next time, may your DMs be kind, may your D20s roll high. Bye.